First of all, I would like also to say thank you because for the invitation, because it's a very good moment for me to. It's very interesting to be the possibility to discuss and to think some things with you. I mean, and this is what I want to say. This term, when you ask for a proposed term, it's like you come here, I say my term, and I have to defend my term. It's a term and say why it is a good term for this. And actually, I will start saying that I'm not so sure if it is South, it's a good term for this. I've hesitated a lot before proposing this term, which was a very obvious term for me, like an evidence, a term that comes alone, which comes first. But one of the first reasons of my hesitation was because, as all of us, I was interpellated, questioned by images of migrants or refugees. All the images we saw this time, these weeks in the mass media. But beyond the mass media spectacle of images that were also mentioned here many times, there is one kind of image that had been worked on me in the way as images can work as, you know. This image is people walking. I mean, this walking or keeping moving. This image of people not stopping in a way. Wait a minute. Yeah. And so I will show you, and perhaps we'll come back later. The second reason is because I'm not the second reason of my hesitation. It's because I'm not so sure that the term South could be operatoire. How can it operate in the thinking of geopolitics here today? Because, of course, the constitution of a glossary makes sense when it is built by operating terms that, in a way, can operate material or performative, in a material or performative way. However, I decided to keep South. And it's also because I want to test it with you, to discuss it with you. I mean, over the last 2 decades, the term South has been the object of multiple appropriations and reconceptualizations on the basis of the political dimension of the term. But geographically, as we know, North and South are defined by a sort of conceptual line, which is the equator. Through this line, and I will explain the image, through this line, which is a kind of border that divides the world in two, you can find different sorts of monuments in the world, real monuments. So here is a monument of the equator line in Indonesia, in Pontianak. This is another one in Brazil, in Macapá. And this is another one, actually 2 markers, in Quito, Ecuador. Quito, Ecuador says that it's the biggest city where the equator lines passes through. And we have to say that they built a kind of thematic park called La Mitad del Mundo, half of the world. In this thematic park, there is a museum. There are many different kind of this one, actually the first one, this one, monument, which each face, which side is facing to a different cardinal point. And then, of course, you can stay one leg on the north and one leg in the south. And there are many attractions, like, for example, that you can see how an egg keeps stand because gravity force doesn't operate as it operates in the south or in the north. Okay? So, the problem is this monument was built between 1979 and 1982. But with the GPA's measures, they realized later that the equator was not exactly in this part, but 2,000 meters aside. So, there are 2,000 meters further, you find another thematic park which existed. This thematic park is more connected with indigenous people and traditions of the region, but where you also have a marker which say latitude 000 calculated with GPS. But still, even there, still actually there are some difference between different types of GPA's measures. So you don't have only one measure of GPS. Everything that shows that we don't know where the equator line is, and which it's difficult so to define north and south geographically in an exact way. However, for a geographic south was conceived in opposition to the north through a division in their ways of material and knowledge production and modes of being. In this conception, if the south was not a place of manufactured richness and production of legitimated knowledge, it was covered by an aura of romanticism. South was a given condition. Geography appeared at the same time as the element that conditioned the division and its explanation. I mean, we are from the south because we are in the south, but actually you are the south because you are from the south. So it was the cause and the consequence of this binary division. We can retrace the opposition in these terms to the foundation of Europe, with all the literature that explains the deep difference between Germanic and Greek folks, opposition that, by the way, was recently updated in other terms. In any case, both the North and the South built up this conception, producing and reproducing closed and fixed identities, univocal narratives, and unfair economies. In a way, this kind of paradigm, it's not only political, but biopolitical. They produce also the ways, or determine the ways of living. We have to say that, fast to this, let's say, paradigm, I think that there are we can find three different ways of operating. And South, the use of South shows the three different ways of operating. Let's go to, I have to say that I'm going to proceed in non-aligned way. We'll go from the earth to the sky and to the celestial sphere, with also a mind conceptualized sphere, territory. It doesn't exist. It was built by the science. In the celestial sphere, there is a constellation of stars called La Cruz del Sur, the Cross of the South, which is visible only in the south. But it should, so you can, we can go to the south if you're not in the south, mostly. But in a way, it shows a direction. This, actually, the cruise, the approach, which is the last point, shows the direction to the south when you are mostly in the south. In this way, the Cruz del Sur, La Cruz del Sur, it's a way to think the south as a horizon, as a kind of the place where you are going to arrive a day, but you keep moving to the south. And in that way, that is one of the ways that the south answer to the paradigm of the binary opposition to the north. In a way, the south was utopia. The south is a kind of horizon where we are going to. We have to say that, of course, the constellations has many different interpretations in indigenous people, and the Inca people thought that the La Cruz del Sur was a kind of connection between the Kei Pacha, the terrenal world, the Hanan Pacha, the world of the gods, and the Uku Pacha, the world of the dead. So the three worlds were connected in this, through this image, through the Cruz del Sur. But first, so way to respond to a paradigm, a construction, a given construction, is to think something as a future horizon, as utopia. A second way that the South positions itself or position a response to the paradigm, to the binary division, is to reivindicate itself. So reivindication. It operates in the idea of it's a reaction to the North, saying the South exists too, also exists. We have actually, this is obviously a watchword that was used everywhere in South America. It's also the poem of Benedetti, which is a Uruguayan poet. This poem was sung by a famous Spanish cantautor, and they took many different visual and artistic forms. Actually, Venezuela last decades, Venezuelan television channel uses as a slogan the sentence, "The South is our North," which obviously is connected to an Uruguayan artist. Actually, I decided not to show the picture because I saw that, I think that everybody has seen this picture where you have the inverted Latin America. So he decided to reverse, how do you say, reversing Latin America, saying that the South is the North. But I decided to show you a text written in 1941 by Joaquín Torres Garcia, where he was talking about a kind of school that he created in Uruguay called Escuela del Sur, a school from the South. And he said, I said Escuela del Sur because sorry, because our North is the South. It hadn't been a North to us except in opposition to the South. So he's clearly reinversing exactly in the same codes, with the same codes and in the same way, the paradigm of the South is the opposite of the North. In this way of operating, in this operation, reaction replaces always the same codes and the same structures than the hegemonic paradigm, because he's reproducing the same thinking of a way of thinking. And in that sense, South could also be exclusive, which is this is what it shows. This is a piece made by Bruno Lagomarsino, which is an artist born in Scandinavia from Argentinian parents, living in Sao Paulo and Malmo. The sentence, so he printed a sentence on papers, so it's like a poster that you could take with you. It was part of the exhibition Cannibalia in Cadiz, Paris this year. And the sentence says, if you don't know what South is, it's because you are from the North. This sentence, it's part of a film, a very famous film called South, Sur, by the filmmaker Pino Solanas. Obviously, if you don't know what South is, it's because of the South. It's a kind of exclusion. You can't understand because you are not from the South. This is one of the ways the operation of reversal, the operation of reaction, replace the same codes and the same ways of doing of the hegemonic system. In this frame, we have the Red Conceptualismo del Sur. I'm part of this network. So we defined the name at the same time, conceptualism and South as a strategic way of operating in, at the same time, artistic framework and political framework. I have to say that the declaration and the position through this declaration, founding declaration of the Red, it's a little bit in between. It's a little bit operates like a reaction, and at the same time it tries to go through this third model that I will talk later. But for me, it's a kind of it's something which is not finished of thinking in the Red Conceptualismo del Sur. So in its founding declaration, the Red Conceptualismo del Sur, Southern Conceptualism Network, which actually literally should be network of conceptualism of the South, adopts, and I quote, a strategic use of the term South. It is used with the purpose of intervening in the geopolitical segmentation of a territory, Latin America, within the current hemispheric conjuncture. The geopolitical condition of the South is not used as a metonymy for the geography of Latin America, but as a discursive tool for dismantling the centrality and reversing the epistemic marginality upon which global conceptualism have been historicized. Through the strategic and geopolitical use of the term South, we intend to ensure that the Latin America stance is informed not by a reclamation of some regional cultural identity, but rather that it allows the revision of the strict dichotomies that divide center and periphery, canon and counter-canon, first and third worlds, Western and non-Western. Why I say that in a way this position of the red is in an in-between. It's because at deciding to use sounds as in a strategic way, we accept the binary, the given position of the hegemonic paradigm. But at the same time, we say, well, we accept that there is a division in two parts. We accept that we are part of the division, but we are going to use this to change that. We have to underline that the idea here that it is a strategic, that the idea is to use sounds in a strategic use. The operation consists in taking this given condition and reshaping its content. Sounds cannot be any more confused with the geographical position. By the way, is not or should not be geolocated. It becomes, with its possibilities and limits, a collective and political active lieu d'énonciation. So South here is going to take place as a place of saying. But of course, there is a third model possible when you reshape completely the content of the word and you use and here you have an affirmative operation because the reaction is a negative operation. You are always saying no to something, you are in opposition to some things. But to change a model, you need to be in an affirmative position because you are going to build something else. And here I will just show you, talked very briefly about a Portuguese sociologist called Boaventura de Sousa Santos, which is a sociologist coming from Portugal, but who is thinking the South as in an affirmative position. And he says, I understand epistemology of the South as a way of reclaim new process of productions. No process, that's the north coming. A new process of production and of valorization of legitimate knowledge, scientific and non-scientific, and a new way of relationship between different kinds of knowledge through practice of classes and different kinds of social groups that has been suffering systematically the unfair desigualdades, inequalities. So the South is here a way to rethink things. It's not in reaction, but he is trying to rethink things. And he decided to positionate his reflection in a landscape where 4 areas are engaged. One is that for him, we live in a period of strong questions and weak answers. Questions are stronger than the answers we have. The second area is connected to contradictions. The level of contradiction, it's for him, one of the highest moments historically of we live in a contradiction world. The third one, and this is one I want to talk a little bit, just 2 seconds. The third is what he called the loss of nouns. The loss of nouns. Nouns, sustantivos. Substantive, nouns. Yes? The nouns. I mean, he said, when we had in the past words like socialism, communism, class strikes, reification, fetishism, etc. That were the words of a critical think. The last years, we are using adjective. We are not talking about democracy. We are talking about radical democracy. We are not talking about we are talking about participative democracy, etc., etc., etc. So for him, we are in a moment where we are losing, in between brackets like this, the nouns, but we are talking about with adjective. And I have to say that it's very useful because I'm also working on the adjectivation of art. I mean, which is interesting is right now it's not more contemporary art, but contemporary artistic practices. And now the shift from art, the shift that we found in art to artistic, it's crucial to think that some practices can intervene in the reality. It's because art becomes artistic that practices can show or find ways of doing, ways of being, and could help social practices or could work with social practices to change or reshape some situations. And the third area that he describes is that a kind of what he names as a relation, a phantasmagoric relation between theory and practice. The work by de Sousa Santos is wonderful, so we should talk a little more about him, but I want to just finish saying that perhaps this third position, the position of the affirmative position, giving content to a word, it's a way to reshape maps, working collectively, thinking maps not only as a territory, not only in a geographical dimension, but in their other multiple dimensions. So this is a workshop by Iconoclastistas, a collective from Argentina, who works in doing workshops collectively. And I show you a map here, where the geographic dimension, it's not a given situation. Because actually what is important, what is not exactly geographical. And of course, I come back to people walking, because they are also reshaping, in a way, the maps. Thank you. Sorry for my English, it was a catastrophe, but it was a catastrophe.